1978, Gary Nelson, the American Museum of Natural History, wrote, he said, the idea that one can go to a fossil record and expect to empirically recover an ancestral descendant sequence, be it of species, genera, families, or whatever, has been and continues to be a pernicious illusion. Henry G. was, again, a man who espoused Darwin evolution. He was a nature science writer, but here's what he admits. He says, no fossil is buried with its birth certificate. He called new fossil discoveries links, as if the chain of ancestry and descent were a real object for our contemplation, and not what it really is. A completely human invention created after the fact, shaped to incorporate human prejudice. He concluded, to take a line of fossils and claim that they represent a lineage is not a scientific hypothesis that can be tested, but an assertion that carries the same validity as a bedtime story. Amusing, perhaps even instructive, but not scientific. So the fossil record lacks the innumerable transition links as demanded by Darwin's theory, and even the few intermediate forms it contains cannot establish ancestral descendant or relationships. Number 3, Darwin talked about vestigial organs. Now, he used the idea of vestigial organs once again to counteract the presence of an intelligent creator. Now, to sum up what he said, let me look at some of his books. Essentially what he said is, the theological argument was, if there was an intelligent creator, God, then his design should also be intelligent. You should not find any flaw in his design. But the presence of vestigial organs that don't really do much or do anything, indicate that there is no existence of an intelligent creator. That's his argument with vestigial organs. So here are his quotes. On the view of each organism with all its separate parts having been specially created, how utterly inexplicable is it that organs bearing the plain stamp of inutility should so frequently occur? On the view of this second modification, we may conclude that the existence of organs in a rudimentary, imperfect, and useless condition are quite avoided, far from presenting a strange difficulty, as they certainly do on the old doctrine of creation, but even have been anticipated in accordance with the views herein explained. So what he's saying is that evolution theory is the perfect explanation for what we call as vestigial organs. So in his book, In the Descent of Man, he uses the human appendix. The human appendix as an example, saying that this is a vestigial organ, and therefore it validates this theory of evolution or natural descent. But interestingly, and many modern Darwinists continue to present this theological argument that finding such rudimentary, non-utility vestigial organs indicate or validate the process of evolution. However, interestingly, the appendix, which was once thought to be functionless, is now known to be an important source of antibody-producing blood cells, and thus an integral part of the human immune system. It may also serve as a compartment of beneficial bacteria that are needed for normal digestion. So the conclusion is the appendix is not useless at all. So the claim that vestigial organs provide evidence for Darwinism is basically a Darwin of the gaps theory. It collapses on two reasons. One, because under the weight of new evidence, what was once considered functionless, we understand have useful functions. And second, if Darwin is presenting a theological argument against the existence of an intelligent creator God, because of flaws because of what he considers as flaws in creation, then the Bible, biblical theology also affords an answer for less than perfect organs or things that are not perfect in our world today. The last thing about Darwin's theory is homology. Essentially, two things you and I need to understand is that in organisms there are several similarities Similarities of function is called analogy, and similarity of structure is called homology. So homology defines similarity of structure and position. Analogy, for example, would be butterflies have wings for flying, and bats also have wings for flying, although they are constructed differently. Example of homology would be that a pattern of bones in a bat's wing is similar to that in a porpoise flipper, but the wing is used for flying and the flipper is used for swimming. So Darwin's argument is that homologies substantiate his theory of evolution. Because why would, again, similar to the vestigial organs argument, similar to what he says, why would an intelligent creator use the same design for different functions? That doesn't show intelligence, according to Darwin. And based on that, he argues against the existence of an intelligent creator God. Let me just read some of his quotes. He says, "How inexplicable, he wrote, are homologies on the ordinary view of creation. For example, why should similar bones have been created to form the wing and leg of the bat, used as they are for such totally different purposes? On the other hand, the similar framework of bones in the hand of a man, the wing of a bat, fin of the porpoise, and leg of the horse, at once explain themselves in the theory of descent with slow and slight modifications." He also so that's his argument. Now, the important thing that you and I need to understand is that the normal approach of empirical science is not to argue against a theological view, but to propose a testable mechanism and explain it with evidence. So, Neo-Darwinism, which kind of continued exploring that through genetics and the abilities that we have to the study of genes, had to face up with this argument. If it could be shown that homologous structures are produced by similar genes, and that non-homologous structures are produced by different genes, then we would have a scientific evidence that homology is due to common ancestry, which would then substantiate Darwin's theory of evolution. But biologists have known now for at least a decade that some homologous structures, such as the body segments of fruit flies and locusts, depend on different genes. And many non-homologous structures, such as the eyes of the octopus and the humans or the legs of mammals and insects, depend on similar genes. So, our study of genetics immediately disproves what Darwin proposed in homology. In 1971, Gavin Deere wrote this, researcher said this, he said, "It might be thought genetics would provide the key to the problem of homology. This is where the worst shock of all is encountered. Because characters controlled by identical genes are not necessarily homologous, and homologous structures need not be controlled by identical genes.